Welcome to the Inner Reboot with Sam and Heidi, your weekly pit stop to shake off the stress, laugh at life's plot twists and recharge your mindset. Because let's be honest, transformation doesn't have to be boring or involve 75 different types of smoothie.
So grab a drink, smoothies if you must, and join us for the wins, the fails and the awkward bits, because sometimes the biggest breakthroughs start with an inner reboot and occasionally forgetting why you even walked into the room. Hello.
Welcome to Santa's Grotto.
And it literally looks like Christmas has sicked up on both of us.
It's great. And look, we're wearing very, very similar Christmas jumpers. It's very cool. I did this morning. I've got these really cool Christmas earrings that are made of like tinsel. And I was like, oh, I've had them for like 5 years. I've never worn them. I'll put them on and then realised that we use headphones.
So you won't see it. And they're like Pat Butcher earrings. So they're big Pat Butcher ones.
They're absolutely hideous. And I think I got them from a website that I won't name that you have to order about 6 months in advance to actually get it delivered. I've never worn them.
Just hang them on the tree instead as a decoration.
I will, yeah. So there we are. We are feeling very festive in our Inner Reboot podcast today.
Yes, indeed. Festive vibes. Yeah, it feels quite nice to be in Christmas vibes. Feels good.
It does. 2 weeks. 2 weeks today, I believe. It's Christmas Day, I think.
Fine. There we go.
So what are we doing today? We are talking about connections.
Connections over networking. And I guess we've been talking about it a lot, obviously, and we are very much in the throes of having to go to loads of events and networking and doing all of that stuff, which isn't our forte. It's just not something we necessarily love to do, but we're having to learn to love to do it.
So far as that it actually fills me with dread. It makes me really anxious. I feel really nervous. I really worry about what I'm going to say, how I'm going to position myself, how I come across, if anybody actually even speaks to me. And then there's that awful feeling of like, if you get in the room and there's already loads of people there and they're already huddled up, they're either in pairs or groups or whatever chatting, how do you go and infiltrate that without looking like you're being rude? But actually it's not, because that's what they do. That's one thing I've found out recently.
They just do it. I think it's probably the most anxiety-provoking thing in a work setting. Like, I've always avoided it. I would happily go along to things if I was with somebody that I knew, so I'd never show up alone. And I guess when you're working like in a corporate organization or when you've got a job, unless your job is sales or marketing and therefore you're probably a bit more comfortable with it anyway, it's not something you have to do. Like, you can avoid it like the plague and just get away with either being right in the background or tagging along but not being front and center. And I guess that has been the biggest shift, is almost just having to become comfortable with going to these things. But also, interestingly, I think what we've worked out is that there are ways to network that don't feel not quite so abrasive. Is that the right word?
I think, brutal, I think is the word. I literally went to a networking event recently, and I said to you, I was going to treat it a bit like a social experiment, because obviously I was going on my own and it's very daunting and I was quite nervous. And it felt really cutthroat. Like, people were talking to me like a few minutes, and it felt like as soon as they'd got their elevator pitch across, they'd literally just walk away to the next person. And I'm standing there like Billy No Mates, like, what the hell? Now, this is really awkward because I'm stood here on my own. So then I had to pluck up the courage to go and kind of like butt in to people that were already talking, which I was thinking, I really don't think I can do this. But I had to, because I felt like an idiot. So I kind of walked over and I said, oh, hi, sorry, I'm just going to butt in. And they were fine with it, which surprised me. So I was kind of like, okay, this is interesting. And then obviously you introduce yourself and the first question is always, so where do you come from? What do you do?
What do you do? Yeah.
Yes. It was very transactional. And we kind of did this like, said my bit.
No, but it's on Blind Date, but it's completely different, isn't it? Blind Date. And what was that TV show where they'd come down the lift and they'd be like, what's your name and where do you come from? Like, it's literally as robotic as that, isn't it?
It's
of the time.
Literally like that.
And we kind of just have a monologue.
Yeah, we went round the group. So I said my bit, the next person said theirs, the next person said theirs. And then there was almost this weird kind of silence and nervous laughter of like, oh, what do we say next? Because you don't know these people.
Yeah.
So it was really awkward.
Without talking about the weather.
It was really, really awkward. I very quickly that a lot of them already knew each other, which I think made it even worse,
right.
because obviously this was the last one that they're doing, but obviously they've probably been doing this for a year or more, like, so they knew each other quite well. But to be fair, It's what I found interesting was just approaching it in a completely different manner. So that first interaction was almost like your traditional networking, say your elevator pitch and then move on to the next
Mm.
person. And I didn't after that, which is why it was more of a social experiment to kind of ask them, okay, what do? You always have to start with something, but then trying to uncover who they were rather than what they do, which led to some really good, longer, in-depth conversations of actually getting to know them and their personality and what they've done historically. I found out so much more about them than just going, I work for this company and this is my job role and this is why I'm at this event.
And what did you, I guess, like, what did you do differently then? What was not your elevator pitch, but how did you start that? Because it's not just asking those questions, is it? It's like you have
You,
to change the
yeah.
narrative almost and
You
change what's
do,
happening.
yeah. It's just to ask them really open questions. So there was a couple of people there that were presenting. So it's like, oh, you're presenting today. Tell me about that. That opened up a completely different conversation around what they're presenting on and why they're doing it and what's really important to them and how it eventually, of course, it wrapped round into what they do for a living, but it was more around them as people, like, oh, I'm a bit
Mm,
nervous, or I'm really looking forward to this. I haven't presented anything in such a long time, or, oh, yeah, I do this regularly and I go to this event and I do this for work. So it really opened up a completely different
yeah,
narrative,
it's
which
so
was really
interesting, isn't it?
nice. And then other questions around when people were sharing what they do. Is just asking those questions around that's really fascinating. You must have had some really great experiences, or you must have some funny stories about that. And immediately
Yeah,
the
yeah,
mask drops. As soon as you ask them something quite personal about their experience, like share a story about that, the mask drops, and all of a sudden they're literally in them world, like talking about them, who they are, and what they found funny, and how that experience shaped the next experience, and so on and so forth. So
yeah.
it was really interesting, but I think it's, for me, definitely, I'm definitely somebody that likes to get to know the person rather than just know what they do. So for me, I found it a lot easier and a lot less daunting to actually ask those open questions because people like to talk about themselves. And as soon as you ask them an open question, it's like the floodgates open and the real version of them comes out, you know? And very often as well, it's almost that thing of like, oh, I bloody hate networking events, but I have to do this because, it's really good exposure. And then you can start talking like, oh, what do you hate about them or what do you love about them?
Yeah,
And then
yeah,
you're
yeah.
uncovering.
I think as well, like it changes the dialogue instantly because like I can go on LinkedIn and I can find out what people do. And this is why I guess we keep leaning to it's all about connections over networking. Like the intense and relevant connections and the people we're connected with is so much more valuable than a network that's massive. And I think as soon as you start asking those questions, that's what you unfold. And then you can pick on something really interesting. So like if you've introduced yourself and instead of saying like, hi, I'm the co-founder of Transformative Minds or I'm a talent specialist or whatever, and you've gone, so I like work with people to unlock their growth mindset or something
Hmm.
like that, literally instantly it's like, what does that mean then? Or tell me a bit more or like anything like that. Whereas talent specialist is sort of like, oh, okay, good.
Yeah.
Like, okay. Because either people don't understand it because they don't understand that terminology because it's not their world. Or they're
Mm.
like, oh, yeah, I get that. I know what those people do. So I think that definitely is really interesting. I'm glad you've done the social experiment. So, like, in the same room. I think that's
Yeah,
fascinating.
it was really interesting to do. And I think it's the ones where it was very round robin were very quick. So you're interacting with a lot of people and all of a sudden they're like, oh, give me your LinkedIn, share the QR code, whatever it might be. But oddly, the ones where we really got into the deep conversations and sharing stories and experiences, I forgot to get their QR code. So I had to go back a bit later
Mm,
and say, let's connect. And it's really interesting that that became bottom of the pile in that
yeah, yeah,
moment. Whereas the other conversations where it's your elevator pitch, it felt like the objective was to get through that as quickly as possible, share your QR code and move on to the next person.
yeah.
It was literally like speed dating, basically. Not that I've ever been speed dating, but I'm sure that's what it's like. But the ones where it was really deep, meaningful conversations and we were starting to build a rapport and understand each other, you're kind of like, oh, it's really great to talk to you. Okay, enjoy the rest of the set, whatever it might be. I then had to go back and say, can we connect? So it definitely took the pretense of it's almost like you've got a target to hit. I need to link up with 10 people on LinkedIn before the end of the session, which I know is the purpose of it, but it's just really interesting when you give it the human touch of getting to know people.
Although the purpose is to connect with people and find potential clients for us and potential business opportunities or collaboration opportunities, there's no point connecting with 10 people if those 10 connections aren't beneficial. You're better off connecting with 2. And I always think as well, like, even if you hadn't have got their LinkedIn there and then, you probably learn enough to remember their names to be able to probably whittle it down on LinkedIn and find them anyway. Whereas those other ones, potentially, it would have been like, oh, well, I didn't get their LinkedIn, don't know where to start, like, to find them type thing. So, it's fascinating, isn't it? So I reckon in the last 3 months, I've been to more events than I have in the last 3 or 4 years, like networking events. So I feel like I'm learning very fast and very quickly about the places that are more enjoyable, the places that feel less daunting to even go to, let alone be in the room, but also those conversation starters as well, like feel less intense, I guess, over time. So I've had some really fun ones. We done one together, which was really fun, which was, so for anybody listening, like, find the things that are intriguing to you. So if intriguing to you is hearing from a really experienced keynote speaker, find those ones. If intriguing to you or exciting to you is being more hands-on or there being an activity so you don't have to feel the confrontation of the networking, I guess. If intrigue to you is something new that you've not experienced before. So what we find interesting is going to be very different to a lot of other people. But one of them we went to, I think this has been my favourite. No, has it been my favourite? I don't think it's been my favourite, but it's definitely one that I will keep going to regularly, is the Wildlife Trust one, where we were driving, signed up to this. It was a HR networking event, but put on by the Wildlife Trust. Sam found it, sent it over. I was like, yeah, why not? Let's go for it. Have to be there at 9:00, 9 till 12 at the Wildlife Trust. So I just assumed that was like the hosting venue, and then it'd be like a normal networking type thing. That was just in my head. And then we got the email beforehand that was like, bring your wellies and your thick coat, and it's going to be raining, so just be aware. And then we was driving towards it on a Monday morning at 8:00, and it was absolutely hammering it down with rain, like literally could barely see. It was cold, and I was like, what are we doing? Like, what sort of event is this? And then you get there and you have to go down like the farm tracks to get to this place, because it is literally a wildlife trust with like a schoolroom, basically.
Well, I got there, didn't I, before
the
you?
bridle path.
I went up the bridle path and had to do a really dodgy 3-point turn, which in a 4x4 is never good, and then said to you, don't drive up the bridle path when you get in.
But the tracks were all still so small that I was like, am I on the bridle path or am I not? Anyway, we got there and this poor woman was waiting for me because I'd got caught in traffic. And we got in, we had a cup of tea, and it was so like stripped back. There was like a handful of people. We had a cup of tea and a biscuit. And then we went out and we cut down some trees. We done some coppicing. And I'm really pleased because nobody else knows what that word is. Whereas when I was there, I was like, everyone seems to know what coppicing is and I know nothing. Or learn about bushes and trees and all sorts of stuff.
We learned how to make sloe gin from the sloe berries. That was cool.
We learnt that, and loads of other stuff that we could make from random berries on the bushes that were good for you that I can't remember, so that is not an interest of mine. But then, so we spent like an hour, didn't we, like cutting down these trees with our loppers and then covering it back up, and we learned all about why to do that. And then we went back, had another cup of tea, and then we made a mallet out of a branch, which was so hard work. For about 20 minutes, it was pure silence because we was all trying to not cut our fingers off with a knife and work out how to smash a bloody handle into a branch. But it was really intimate because they're a new thing. But I left there feeling really energized and motivated, feeling so much calmer and more like it was just a complete mindfulness thing, connected with somebody that potentially we will continue to work with in the future. So there was one connection, but even if there wasn't that, I left there thinking, I need to keep doing these because it's such an easy way to meet people and talk to people as well, and broaden my own horizons, I guess, in terms of what networking events look like. Because that was by far the most intriguing, the most different thing I've ever done. But I also just felt good in myself. Like it wasn't an energy drainer. So even other events that I've absolutely loved, like the unconference I went to, that was great. A room full of like-minded people, all talking about learning. There was none of that like self-networking. It was all like facilitated and contained, so it didn't feel really overwhelming. And I love that. And that gave me so much motivation and energy. But you still leave those things when you're with people for a full day, almost working,
Mm.
because we was talking through our own learnings as well, absolutely exhausted. Like you've got the energy, but you're also depleted because you've just been on the go constantly. Whereas it just
Yeah.
wasn't like that when we were chopping down trees.
It was not. It really wasn't. Yeah, it was physical, but mindful. And I think that's the
Yeah.
difference. It really, I mean, we did that on a Monday morning, didn't we? And for the rest of that week, I felt really energized, but really mindful in what I was doing
Yeah.
and why we're doing what we're doing and what the point of it is and the meaning and all of that great stuff. And they absolutely had it right. We didn't give them this feedback, but yes, it was a networking event. But what they also uncovered, it was that we've all got skills that we didn't know we had. Like
Yeah.
before we went there, I literally did not know that I could carve a
A
mallet
mallet.
of tree trunk. Like it was
I
just so
know.
bizarre. And when he showed us what we were going to do, I
I
was
was like,
thinking,
whatever.
my God. But it was so good. And it really reset my brain. Like it really
Yes.
anchored me
And
back
started
to,
that week really
yeah,
well.
it did. Yeah.
I'm just really pleased that because I've never been able to understand how they make like curves in wood and make them so small. And now I know, so
Yeah,
smooth. And now I know how to do that.
could do it. We could definitely survive. I mean, we'd probably get quite drunk on the slow berries, and there was a couple of other berries with the medicine. But
Yeah.
yeah, I think we'd. And the better it
Spend
was,
our
we got to
life.
bring our mallets home,
I know.
which is
I
great.
can't tell you how many people I've strained my mallet to.
I'm definitely going to try mine out in the summer because my figuring is it would be really good for tent pegs. I think that's when it
Yes.
will come in really beneficial.
Yes.
So yes,
I
I
think you're
will
right.
report back after our next camping trip. No, it was brilliant. It was really, really good. And I think you're right in terms of the energy drainers. I think definitely my reason for shying away from networking and feel really nervous and anxious about it is because I know it taps into my energy drainers, the things that I won't put at the forefront and the things that you have to bring to the surface to be able to interact and get around those things.
Yeah.
I think sometimes I saw one the other day and it said it's 2 hours of networking, but they'd advertise like no presentations as if it was a really good thing. So it's all networking the entire 2 hours. And I thought, I can't go to that. And the
No.
reason why is because very often, if you're somebody like me that almost wants to get to know the person, but kind of finds it difficult to interrupt conversations. Sometimes when they've done a presentation, it's so
It's
much
like an in.
easier to go up and say, wasn't that presentation great? Or, I took this really cool gold nugget from that. What did you think of it? What did you get out of it? So yeah, as soon as I saw no presentations, I swerved because
There's
I
like a
can't do
really
that.
like awful blank piece of paper, isn't it? Like
Yeah.
not having anything. Like if it's no presentations, but you're having like small, like it's so the unconference, that's more of a learning event, I would say. But that was a networking event, but it was very structured. So there's no presentations, but it was really structured and formatted,
Mm.
and you knew what this is the thing. You sort of knew what to expect within a little. Like it was still very new to me. And I think that's the difference as well, like, isn't it? If something is advertised as networking for 2 hours and there's no presentations and it doesn't tell you anything else, like what? I don't need 2 hours to do that. How am I gonna constantly be thinking of new conversations for 2 hours without
It's a
any
lot.
like intervention? Yeah,
I
that
think I think I'm just trying to think of like, what is the moral of this podcast? I guess that the key messages and the takeaways is understand who you are and what you want because everybody's different. Like you mentioned earlier on about salespeople, they have this.
they have something that I don't
Yeah,
have,
yeah.
that in terms of a confidence and a real passion for doing what they're doing and sharing that with people.
I was going to tap into the confidence side of it. I think
Yeah.
if you are in that arena, you naturally have the ability to converse with people in a really confident way and anything pretty much. And it's a skill that I just don't have. And I'm always very jealous of people that can do that. But I think with networking events, it's almost know who you are first before you choose them. Because if you're somebody like that, you probably could spend 2 hours networking and not
Yeah.
having to worry about there
Yeah.
being presentation. Whereas I definitely try to seek out the networking events where there's a little bit of an agenda. Like you said, I kind of know what to expect. There might be some presentations, and maybe the networking side of it might be the first 20 minutes and the last half an hour, for example. And then there's something of something in between,
Mm.
whatever that looks like. those are the ones that I'm definitely more attracted to. But I would say to anybody, find your thing, find what you like, but also treat it like a social experiment. I did, and it worked really well. And it really stopped me from being so nervous. So I went in with thinking, right, I'm just going to ask a few different styles of question to see what the response is. And that's what worked really well. So rather than going thinking, I have to talk, I have to make connections, I went in thinking, I wonder what would happen if I positioned a question in this way, or I wonder what would happen if I did this.
Yeah.
So it really helped.
I think that's a really good point. Like, it's not necessarily like people might not even have a social experiment to do, but they might have, like, think of the purpose of why you're going and
Yeah.
then focus it on that. Because I think that makes such a difference in itself, because then
Mm.
you're focusing on, I want to understand more about what people are like. I want to learn about, I'm curious, like I'm a naturally curious people. So I want to know what's going on in other people's worlds. That instantly makes it easier than I'm going here to meet as many people as I can, or to get some business, or because I have to. Like, as soon as it's because you have to, it feels harder as well, because you've not got that like inner purpose and that inner reason for going. So yeah, but if you can
Yeah.
make it fun, if you can find like something in there, like a social experiment or any that takes the edge off, if these are things that are nerve-wracking for you. And I also think it's going with a mindset, a growth mindset, I guess, of I'm going to explore what this one's like. And if this one doesn't work, like we've been to a couple that don't work for us individually, separate ones, same ones. And I know I will never, ever, ever go to some specific ones again, because
Mm.
they are not beneficial. They cause me anxiety, and they are the things that have always put me off networking.
Mm.
Whereas I found lots that are, they're disproving my limiting beliefs. They're
Yes.
breaking down my limiting beliefs of networking is this thing, because
Mm.
now I found places where I can go to where it's not that. And by having a open mindset to it, it's made it so much easier.
I mean, let's be honest, even the word networking fills most people with dread, even if you like going.
Yeah.
So it's almost actually, it's about connections, it's about learning about other people and just, yeah, approaching it in your own way, not other people, what the expectation of others, it's what you want to get out of it, first and
Yeah.
foremost.
And I think for me, the thing that's been really enlightening is finding my people, because those are the ones that I'll go to regularly now. Like, there'll be other ones,
Yeah.
but those are the ones where it's like, oh no, actually, this is a really good place to be, because
Mm.
I get energy from it. I enjoy the people I'm having conversations with. They have this like a similar interest, or we're interested in similar type of thing. Like, all of that stuff makes it so much easier.
We've met some absolute nutters in the best possible way. And I've come back before and I've said to you, "Oh, I've connected with this person, like you'd love them. You know, they've got so much energy and etc." And it's kind of like you say, it's our people,
Yeah.
you know. And that I think is really, really important.
Yeah,
I
definitely.
think I think for me, it was almost just do it, figure out what I don't like and figure out what I do like, and then kind of stick to it. And that's, I suppose, the last few weeks, months of what we've been doing. And there are some amazing ones out there that really don't feel like you're networking, which I
No, not
love.
at all. They just feel
Mm.
really, yeah. And I think you can often get a sense of that from what you see on social media, what you see from how they're like, there are the really formal ones, and and some of those are still enjoyable. Some of those, like, they haven't
Mhm.
been difficult. And then there's also the much more relaxed ones, like we're all here just to build connections and just to help each other out. And they all have their place. And it's working out which ones are relevant. And also why you're going. Like, I also think it's a thing, don't force yourself to go to the wrong things for no reason.
It would be good, actually, if anybody listening, if you have had some random experiences, good, bad, or other, please do share them with us because it's really important to understand what people are experiencing, but also what they love and what they're
Yeah,
finding the
yeah,
right way to do it. Because I mean, we've talked about this loads about creating an inner reboot community of just come along, have a coffee, share your challenges, etc. And it's not necessarily networking, it's more around actually I just need to reboot my mind, a bit like we did at the Wildlife Trust. That
yeah,
felt like a reboot for me, like a complete mind reset, because it lasted for the rest of that entire week. It had an impact on me. And I think that's really important. So, yeah, we would love to hear from people, you know, around your networking experiences, what you,
well,
what you love and you don't love.
I think as well, isn't it? Like, you've just that, and I know we need to wrap up, but that was like, that's the real difference for me, is connection and community over networking. But having said that, connection and community doesn't always bring in business as well. Like there is still an element of networking that has to happen if you are
Yeah.
needing to, if you're running a business, if you're owning a business, or if you're
Yeah.
working in that space. And I think that also is really important to recognize.
I think one thing we've learned is it's not necessarily about going out to market. It's about building bigger connections and
Mm,
building relationships with people. Because even if person ABC, you're not going to get any business from them, they might know 3 other people that might want business
yeah,
from you, but you've already made that interlink. And I think that's the bit that's really important. It's almost looking at it further. It's like a long-term game, not short-term. It can't just be, I'm going to networking events to get business. That's not realistic. It's almost, how do I build connections, make relationships with people
yeah,
so that I build up really good positive relationships and I know the person behind the mask, not just their elevator pitch. And, if they hear something, then they're going to recommend you. And I think
yeah.
that's the bit that's really important.
Yeah, definitely. And that's not just about recommending businesses. That's like about anything in life. Like that
Yeah.
is the way it works.
Hmm.
If you build those connections and relationships, you're more front and center. But I'm sure we will continue to go to lots of different events, some which work and some not quite so much. But
Hopefully we'll be sitting here next year sharing another
we'll always have a
connection
story.
networking one. But we'll always have a story. I think ours will be maybe when we try and experiment with our own community and see how that goes and figure out where it fits.
Yeah, definitely. Cool.
Cool.
Well, I do have another event to prepare for. I'm going to remember your social experiment lowdown and play around with that.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas. Have
We
a good
won't be as
week.
festive next time.
Cheers. And Merry Christmas.